The Iconography of XLZABK001 and XLZABK002, also known as John Zaremba Book 1, Book 2, the Red Book, the Blue Book. The iconography of these two books is an important part of the overall packaging and aesthetic. Each book is a collection of 7 short stories. And I didn't want to just put like a normal generic book cover on these things. I wanted to create something that would give a potential reader like yourself some indication of what these books entail. So I'm making this video now to kind of explain to you the logic and the thought that went into creating the icons for book 1 and book 2. Look at that boy over there chewing on a stick. Little sticky pup. So here's book 1. This is the red book. And before I talk about the icons, you probably wonder about this symbol. You see it, I got it on my pendant here as well. That's XLZABK is the name of it. It's a logo I've been using for decades. When I used to record music, I used to record it on like an independent, it's a self-record label called XLZABK Records. And that's the logo that I used on all the CDs and stuff I put out. So I've adopted it into the books as well. And that's why XLZABK001, that actually stands for XLZABK Book 1. And essentially all that is the serial number for the release. When I released CDs, they were XLZACD0010 or 11 or whatever it is. Now these are books, they're BK. That's the whole story behind that, in case you were wondering why it's such an unwieldy title for a book. But this symbol here, this is XLZABK. And essentially what it is, there's a video game, Thunder Force 2. Long time ago, what was that, like 1991, 1992, I think that game came out. I'm a big fan of two-dimensional, especially the side-scrolling shoot-'em-up games. The Thunder Force series, you're probably familiar with the R-Type series, Gradius, those kinds of games. I love them. I love them to death. I love the aesthetics of them. I like the action of them. I like the tech designs of them. I just like the idea of a singular piercing instrument, which is these ships are all very piercing in shape, penetrating through just a horde of evil and destroying it from within. And that's kind of if you have read any of my stories, that's a kind of a theme that is in a lot of these stories as well. They're very, very similar. I'm going on a tangent already, but this symbol here, the ship from Thunder Force 2 was named XLZABK, okay? And that ship had a little thing that would spin around like a drone, but it was called a crawl for whatever reason. And it was like an orb. It was an orb like this that would spin around and rotate it would go around like a gyroscope. That's a flattened image of that little crawl thing that XLZABK had flying around her ship. Boy, what a tangent. This is the red book. I told you that each of these icons represents a different story in the book. And I also told you there's 7 stories in each book. So why are there 5 icons if there's 7 stories in here? So let me show you what that's all about. I know it's super sunny out here. The sun's driving me nuts, first of all, but it is absolutely freezing. That's why I got this goofy hat on. I'm gonna go somewhere and get a little bit bundled up and try to find some shade so I could show you these books a little bit better. Okay, this is much better. Here's book 1, the red book, book 2, the blue book. You see that banner on book 2? This is a proof copy from Amazon. Comes out on February 11th. So this is just a temporary thing. Whenever you order it, you will not have that banner on yours. They just put that on there so I don't resell it. But like I was beginning to say, book 1 has 5 icons across the top and also 5 icons on the back, but there's 7 stories. The gist of it is that each of these icons represents the weapon that the protagonist uses in each of the stories. And there's only 5 icons on book 1 because Vade, the protagonist that uses his index finger as a weapon, this character here, Vade, is used in 3 stories on book 1. I'm going to do another video that kind of goes into the difference between red and blue, but suffice to say, book 1 has a lot more horror in it. It is certainly a lot darker and is certainly a lot more violent than book 2. And because there's so much horror in it, the character Vade comes back throughout the book in 3 different stories. So the descriptor I have for Vade in book 1 is, suffer the agony and ecstasy of righteous demonic possession. Book 1 deals with the celebration of demonic possession, whereas book 2 begins with a story called Continual Self-Exorcism, because book 2 is about exorcising demonic possession. Book 2 is an inverse of book 1. But Vade's weapon is his index finger, so that's why his icon is that of a claw. He uses his index finger as a weapon. He's basically a demon that takes physical form in 3 of the different stories from book 1. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let me run through these icons in book 1 from top to bottom. First thing you see is a hammer. That hammer is the weapon of Mark Oberheim from the story Promontory. He bestows that hammer to his protege, Joshua Day, in that story, and his tagline is "Experience satisfaction as a mythical hammer demolishes the selfless." I would say that Promontory is a sword and sorcery story, in my opinion, but most people would probably call it urban fantasy because it doesn't take place in a fictional land or a time of like European past. But the nature of the story is very much sword and sorcery. The next icon you see is a handgun. That is the handgun of Ogden from the story Vigilante Romance. And his blurb is "Revel in the transformation of a geriatric failure into an urban vindicator." I think that's pretty self-explanatory. He's a really, really old guy that becomes a vigilante, and he finds salvation through violence. We already talked about Vade, so you got Vade right there. Let's move on down. This is a sword, pretty obvious, right? That is the sword of Einhander from the story Einhander. Einhander, he goes through several transformations in the story, but his final name is, in fact, Einhander. And his blurb is, "Witness the virtues of an entropic blade born to extinguish the pious." So you might be getting an idea of the theme of book 1 here with demolishing the selfless and extinguishing the pious. Einhander is 100% sword and sorcery. There is no other genre that story would fit in. It is a gauntlet of violence from start to finish. One of my favorite things I've written. It's not for everybody. A lot of people can't get through it, and I understand why they can't, but I really, really love Einhander. Finally, that is actually a picture of a brain. That is like a schematic, or not a schematic, that's like a silhouette. It's like a top-down mechanical drawing of a brain. And that is from the story, "The Universe is Ours." And the blurb there is, "Participate in the volitional resurrection and satiating death of new paragons." The universe is ours, and the brain is the icon because the protagonist of that story uses his brain as a weapon. It's a weapon, but it's also more or less a key to his own freedom. All right, now here we have book 2. Book 2, like I said, it comes out in February. It's not out yet when I'm making this video, so I don't want to give too much away from some of these stories. I don't really aim to write twist endings to anything like that. I'm not really a fan of the twist at the end of a story, but some of these kind of have a bit of a twist, and I just feel if I would give you too much insight, it might, soften the punch when you actually read this stuff. But I'm going to do my best here. We'll start from top to bottom. The first story in the book is Continual Self-Exorcism. And the tagline here is, "Celebrate a swordsman's blazing deliverance from possession." You may have different interpretations of what that icon is. If I tell you what it is, well, I can give you a hint. This story pays homage to the Manowar album, Fighting the World. If that gives you any indication, then you might figure it out. I don't know. Next up is another sword, and that gives you a hint. This is certainly a sword and sorcery story. This is Prohyresis, and the tagline is, "Witness the rousing evolution of a prodigal outcast into a noble savage." Now, this is also a straight-up sword and sorcery story, but it is the inverse of Einhander from book 1. Whereas Einhander is not very nuanced. It is really just an onslaught of violence. Prohyresis is more supple. It's more balanced. It's more nuanced. There's much more character growth in Prohyresis. It is a sword and sorcery story, don't get me wrong, but there's certainly, they're both deep stories if you get right down to it. They both have lots of symbolism, but Prohyresis is probably more appealing for people that like character development in their stories. Next up, Live the crowning destiny of intelligent life's reluctant savior. And that is from the story Subjugate the Cosmos think it's pretty obvious that is in fact a flying saucer. This would be a science fiction story, but because it is a bit of a parable, to me this feels more like a genre of fiction that I don't even know if it exists or not, but I call it cosmic parable, where there's something to glean from these stories, something to learn from them. This particular one is a science fiction story that's got a bit of a, well, for the right person, for the special person, and if you are that person, you'll know that you're that person when you read the story. For that person, for you, if you're watching this video, then that will mean quite a lot to you, that flying saucer right there. Okay, moving on. Welcome Earth's demise and rejoice in interstellar... I'm still freezing, guys. I'm outside and it's cold. Welcome Earth's demise and rejoice in interstellar progeneration. This is from Monogenism, the Promontory Epilogue. So like I said, each of these stories is an inverse of the one from book 2. Promontory is the first one. Promontory Epilogue, this is the inverse of that. This is the mirror of Promontory. It is also straight up sci-fi. And I was telling you about XLZABK previously, the logo that's on the front of these books. The name of the ship in Monogenism is also XLZABK. So I use that term a lot. I'm going to use it in the next thing I write too, so just get used to it. But this story is very much a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up put to pen and paper. So I'm writing a story that embodies a lot of the things that I enjoy from those two-dimensional side-scrolling shooters of the late 80s and early 90s. Next up, that is in fact the icon of a heart. And the tagline here is, "Hearken oral alchemy as an ancient mystic weaponizes the conceptual." And that is for the story Kathakon. Kathakon is about just that, an ancient mystic that brings to fruition, brings to tangible reality that which does not exist in tangible reality. I did a video a little bit ago about why I use present tense in different stories and the difference between time and space, and that the things that we imagine are not subject to time because they do not exist in the real world. Time being a measurement of the movement of objects. So if the object is not tangible, it cannot move, and therefore it is not subject to the confines of time. This story breaks that. The protagonist from Kathakon finds a way to make tangible that which does not exist, and he weaponizes it, and it is in fact a heart. Next up, join a wandering teen on his quest for fruition, purpose, and love. Those are two drumsticks forming a cross, and that is from the story Mayberry Romance. Mayberry Romance, I did a little video on Mayberry Romance a while back. You might want to watch that for more insight. It's kind of a fan fiction story, as much as I hate to admit it, but it is not your typical pornographic fan fiction. It's a hard G. You know, in terms of ratings, you got G rating, PG, PG-13, R. It's somewhere between G and PG. It's like a G plus, if that's such a thing. You just got to read the story. I don't know. That one is special to me, and I don't know how many people are going to get it, but I like it quite a bit. And then finally, that is the symbol for DNA, surrounded by 2 stars. And the tagline there is, "Climax as a celestial union ends existence and conjures the void." That is the symbol for the final story in the book, Hierogamy. Hierogamy was originally titled "The Universe Does Not Deserve Us," and it's the inverse of the final story from book 1, which was called "The Universe Is Ours." The protagonist in book 1, he emerges from the void, and at the end here of book 2, he returns to the void from whence he came, but as part of a celestial union. So that is Hierogamy. All right, hopefully that gives you some indication of what you can expect from these 2 books. And hopefully this video kind of tells you a little bit about my thought process when designing these icons and the importance of each to kind of represent the stories within. This video is already long enough, and I always struggle to figure out the best way to end these things. So I would just tell you one more time, book 2, the blue book, comes out on February 11th. Check it out. I'll put a link to the Amazon listing below. You could pre-order the Kindle now if you'd like, or you could wait until the 11th to get the paperback and the hardcover. Thanks for watching.